I can hear the ghost of Howard right now saying, okay, you're late, let's get going here. I've got 2 minutes past, so we'll start off the meeting with the roll call.
He's not dead.
The ghost is on. Yes. All right, Jack Early is excused. Lou Jones.
Yes, sir.
Pat Delmeade.
Here.
Steve Hood. I did not hear from Steve. Fulton County, Yvonne Hart is excused. Jack Farquhar.
Here.
Jill Dunham.
She's here with Tom.
Outside
There.
Okay. Hamilton County, Joyce Malidi.
Here.
Bill Malidi, present. Gary Wiggs.
Here.
Montgomery County, Tom Pasquarelli.
Here.
Keith Wood.
Here.
Okay.
Thing.
Tom throwing his voice, is he? Okay. Trish Green is excused. Jared Gilston is excused. He's working. Otsego County, Sid Chase is excused. He's working. Brian Knapp, we have not heard from. Dr. Markowitz. And Wygant, I haven't heard from either of those. Coharie County, Andy Cuccinello and Ed Brandt, we have not heard from. Bill Beavers.
Andy will need to be excused. I don't know about Ed.
Okay.
And I'm here.
You're here. I got you.
Ish.
And Dr. Leinhardt.
Here.
You were more fast.
Okay. Sir, we have a quorum, sir.
Okay, welcome everyone. Okay. I've only got a copy of the minutes from last month. There's no questions, anything like that. We need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion's been made to approve. We have a second.
Second.
Made and second to approve the minutes as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
That's all.
Opposed or abstained. Okay, we have some guests.
Oh, we do indeed. Have a nice bunch of guests today. Howard Hughes and Deb Cuffs from the paramedic programs at SUNY Cobleskill and HBCC, respectively. Joe Farrell and Mary Ramo, not from the paramedic programs, from someplace else.
Dark side.
You can say
The dark side, all right, I was going to say that. Rich Beebe. Rick, welcome, Rich, good to have you. We have Tony Aggressive from the Amsterdam Fire Department. We have Roy Sweet and Country Sweet. They're from Johnstown Area Volunteer Ambulance Corps. And welcome, folks.
Right.
Nice to have you here. Did I leave anybody out? Not deliberately, certainly, but okay, I think I've got everybody.
Okay, very good. And we got a copy of the correspondence for your perusal. I don't have any report. I'll move right on into the Secretary's report.
All right. On March 24th, we were advised by Andy Johnson at the Department of Health that the October 2014 exam date had been rescheduled from October 23rd to October 30th. And we were told that this information also appears on the state EMS website. On March 27th, the Ambulance Service of Fulton County asked in writing for approval to begin the EPCR program. They plan to utilize the image trend software, so I would like to make a motion that,
That's not,
I'm sorry?
no, that's not true. We're using Zoll, but it's set up, it's designed like the image trend.
Oh, you're going to use Zoll
Yes.
software? Okay, I stand corrected. All righty, I make a motion that, that we approve the Ambulance Service of Fulton County to enter the EPCR program using whatever software their little heart desires. How's that? Second.
I second that.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstained? Very good.
On March 31st, we received a written request, say that 3 times in a hurry, from the Coharie County Critical Care Team for regional approval of entry into the EPCR system. They plan to use the IPCR software program. I'll make a motion that we approve that.
Second.
Second by Pat.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstained?
On August, yeah, right. Must be the season of the year, must be springtime. On April 17th, today, the Johnstown Area Volunteer Ambulance Corps has written and asked for EPCR approval, and they're going to use the IPCR software. Let me just make sure that that's right. Yes, they were using the IPCR software by Forte Holdings. And I would like to make a motion that this be accepted.
Motion's been made, seconded.
By Pat?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstained? Okay.
On March 28th, I'm backing up a couple days, we received an email from Lee Burns advising that the EMS exam schedule will proceed uninterrupted due to agreements with the examination service. This was forwarded electronically to all council and REMAC members on the same day, just as an informational thing. So that's one less thing that we have to be concerned about, and that's very good. It is now necessary for us to adopt a guideline and policy for dealing with clarification of territory issues that may soon be presented to this council by certain of our agencies in the region. Copies of the Department of Health Policy Statement 11-06, we have copies here today, and I sent them out yesterday electronically to everybody. And the recommendation has been made, and I would certainly go along with it personally, that we just adopt the policy, the guideline for conducting such processes as outlined in the 11-06 policy statement. So I would like to make a motion to the effect that we adopt the clarification of territory issues policy as the guideline outlined by the Department of Health, and that we ask that a non-refundable fee of $200 shall be requested at the time such application is received. Now, this clarification of operating territory is different from expansion of operating territory, and it's certainly different from transfer of operating authority. A true expansion of operating territory is a true CON process. This does not really involve any it involves a little work on the part of the region, but it really does not involve a public hearing, a hearing officer. It does not involve mailings on our part out to agencies joining the applicant agency. That all has to be done by the applicant agency. They have to present everything to us in writing, and then we, our Transportation and Standards Committee, just takes a look at it and decides whether or not it is complete, and passes it on to the membership. And at our next meeting, we have a roll call vote. Now, right now, we do not have any applications received, but Cobble-Skill Emergency Squad has advised that they're putting together some paperwork to have a clarification of their operating territory, because they've been operating in the Cobble-Skill Fire District for many years and have discovered just recently that no such entity has ever existed. When you said that, you really said it all. They have to clarify where they operate. So they're putting their paperwork together. Mike Lent from the Cobble-Skill Fire Department, the Cobble-Skill Emergency Squad, got in touch with me and said that he is putting the paperwork together, and he wondered if we would conduct a clarification of operating territory process for him, and I said we'd be happy to as soon as we adopted a policy, because we've never had one of these requests before precisely. We had the administrative CON a few years back. That's a little bit different from what this is, and this is very different from a true CON process, which requires some considerable activity on the part of the region. So, any event, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the Department of Health guidelines for this and request a non-refundable fee of $200 just to cover costs of copying and such like that we might incur. And that's my motion.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to adopt this policy. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Any opposed or abstained?
Now, here's something we can put our thinking caps on. If I ask you all to put your respective thinking caps on about, I'm looking at ways to streamline our semi-annual tech reporting process. Right now, we do it the old-fashioned way by snail mail, sending out these little folders to all the techs, and every 6 months they have to have them filled out, their medical director sign off on them and send them back. Now, just within the last 6 months or so, possibly a little bit longer than that, the larger agencies in our region are doing it slightly differently. They've talked to me about it beforehand, and it comes to the same thing. They're sending me a sheet of paper with the names of all the folks that have re-upped, and the paper is signed by the chief operating officer of the agency and the medical director. That saves a lot of paperwork doing. I would like to make this process as electronic as we possibly could. So I've entered into some discussions with Remo about how they do it over there, and personally, I am open to any kind of suggestions that the members might want to, or our visitors might want to lay upon us. I'd just like to streamline the process to make it as user-friendly as possible for our techs, for our agency medical directors, and also for the office to save the cumbersome mailings and so forth. Electronic is a lot easier than non-electronic, especially in this day and age, and some open suggestions. And just kind of, if we put our thinking caps on, send me an email, bring it to the next meeting, whatever thoughts you might have on the subject. So there's that. We have a notice of enforcement action. I'll read it in full because it's kind of interesting. This is the Stony Point Ambulance Corps. It's a violation of Public Health Law 30121B. They're located in Stony Point, New York. Not quite sure where Stony Point is, but they were assessed a civil penalty of $2,000.
Stony Point is down by West Point.
Oh, down by West Point. Okay.
Yeah, Rockland County.
I don't know what 3012-1B is. I didn't have a chance to look it up. Territory issue. Okay, and that, sir, is my report.
Okay, thank you. Move on into treasurer's report.
Okay.
I just have a question about the COT. So we adopted this as our policy, basically, right?
Right.
On page 2, at the top, the second bullet, it says, once the policy is established, it's recommended that the REMSCO place a deadline for receiving COT requests.
I saw that, and I honestly don't know what that means. I'll be perfectly honest with you. It's a recommendation, it's not mandatory, but I truly don't know what they mean by a deadline.
It goes back, this is not a new policy, this is actually a revision. It says new, but it was a COT policy statement sent out years ago, where they asked everybody, gave everybody 6 or 8 months to make whatever decisions you want to do as far as clarification of territory. Unfortunately, it sort of fell apart. Nobody ever followed it, so.
My understanding is that DOH is actively pursuing clarification of territory issues right now. DOH, Department of Health, is actively pursuing clarification of territory issues right now.
Just so you understand what this is all about, part of the problem, I said before, is when we made a mistake of asking for clarification from our Bureau of Legal Affairs on something, which basically opened a Pandora's box. Without getting too technical about it, we're now being charged with going back and verifying operating authorities and ownership of virtually every ambulance service. And we had to start back, and we're going back to 1975 because we needed a starting point. So the obvious starting point is 1975, and everybody had to either be registered or certified. We're finding some very interesting, more territories and ownership issues have morphed into some very interesting issues. That's how Cobleskill. We went back and started doing research on the initial operating authority, initial authorization. We realized that there is no Cobleskill Fire District. So for years and years and years and years now, they've been operating technically in an entity that doesn't exist. There is a Cobleskill Fire Protection District, which is what they're going to give you information on. So that's the reason for this. That particular issue should have been taken out. We're not going to enforce it, obviously, because you're going to get more and more of them as time goes by. And eventually, there'll be hopefully everybody's operating authority will be at least clarified and cleaned up.
Mm-hmm. How does this differ, I guess, from the administrative errors and omissions? For instance, if you have an operating certificate that uses road as borders, is that still valid? I know when we did the...
It's basically the same issue.
So when we did the errors and omissions on the western end of the county, we were advised we had to file for that whole entire town in which we provided the service. They wanted the road borders out of there and left it up to the dispatch centers to make their policies. That's still the same
It's
thing.
a little different. This is different. This is basically to clarify what is the Cobleskill Fire District versus the Cobble Fire Protection District. What they're going to come up to you with is the 2 or 3 towns. It's going to be the town of Cobleskill and portions of the town of Seward. All you're going to do is you're going to look at that and say, yep, that's probably what it is. Agree with it, and we will may or may not issue that. I'm not going to say we will. It's a little different than the other one. It's a little different process. But it's a way of cleaning up the operating territory. The only thing you cannot do and you have to be real careful with this. You cannot expand their operating territory at all.
Right.
It has to be, if it's going to say that the town of Seward, well, they don't have the whole town of Seward. They have to describe what portion of the town of Seward they have. They can't just say the town of Seward, because that'll get rejected like that. That's an expansion of operating territory.
Yeah, there was I saw that looking at the policy statement, there is a distinction, but it can be kind of a narrow distinction sometimes between the clarification and expansion.
Yeah, well, there's, clarification is a very definitive line. It cannot be any extension whatsoever. Only clarification of what they have. It goes back to the, southward corner of Mary's Farm to the tree next to the Bishop House. We have some of it.
Something like the deed to our property.
Yeah, we still have
right,
some.
right.
So that's ultimately what this is meant to clarify.
50 feet from the big tree, there's a rock, and that's the
Yeah,
corner.
and then move the tree and then. Yeah.
Right.
I think it's kind of interesting what you said, because I know my district, with the Walton Fire District, that was Walton Joint Fire District, we cover an area in the part of the town of Hamden and part of the town of Colchester, but the ambulance service, which is part of the fire department, covers a limited part of the town of Hamden, a limited part of the town of Colchester. Delhi, basically, it's just based on the road. Delhi covers so much on this road for fire protection, and Walton covers EMS. So if you have a motor vehicle crash, then both agencies roll. Same thing in Hamden. We have, the ambulance goes just so far up the road, and then from there on, Delhi takes it over for ambulance coverage, but the fire district is a different area. So we're gonna have to do that, a little bit better clarification.
It depends on what you're operating, what is on your primary territory. If it's the fire district or joint fire district, whatever that joint fire district is, that's your operating.
So,
But,
okay.
So it
Joe,
doesn't matter what town it's in.
Walton is one of the ones Dan's trying to get clarified. Walton, they've been going back and forth to the fire commissioners for clarification about whatever of the area.
What if the fire district's changed over time?
I'm sorry.
If the fire district's changed over time?
Then that creates an issue.
Okay.
It is whatever it was in 1975, or when you first registered, or first became certified, whichever was longer. Everybody had to be certified in 1975. Now, as a municipality, that's a whole different entity. That's how this all came about. If you're a municipally owned ambulance service, that's a whole different world, and that's going to create some interesting scenarios coming up very quickly. Does the city of Oneonta Fire Department sound familiar?
Yeah.
So as a regional council, we can't,
I'm sorry?
as a regional council, then what would be our involvement, for instance, in that, for clarification? If they've done that since they've been certified, yet general municipal law says you're only, or DOH policy, whatever, says you only can do the municipality in which you are.
Unless you have a contract
Municipal
with
agreement.
somebody.
Right. And, well, if you have an intermunicipal agreement, that municipality's gotta have the CON.
Be careful. The intermunicipal agreement between agencies is being looked at carefully. And for now, nothing is going to change on that. However, it depends on what's on your initial operating authority. That's what it goes back to. And what is your initial operating authority? The ruling I was talking about, as far as be careful what we ask for, because you're going to get what you don't want to hear, is what do we do about municipalities and muni COs? And the ruling came back is that a municipality cannot operate outside of its own municipal line.
Right.
Period. So that creates the issue that they have on the own. Can they sign an intermunicipal agreement? In theory, no. If it was always part, Cobleskill is owned by the village of Cobleskill. Can the village of Cobleskill sign an intermunicipal agreement? Because they don't have to, because they're covering a fire district, which incorporates certain municipalities. They have to have intermunicipal agreements with that. Can they go and, can the village of Cobleskill apply for expansion of operating territory into Carlisle and Sharon Springs, if they're talking about doing? No, they can't. They can't do that.
Because they're limited
becomes
to
a
the
whole
municipality.
complicated issue when it comes to municipality. You know, and a fire district is a quasi-municipality, so can a municipality respond within a fire district? Yes, they can, because it's a quasi-municipal entity. Can they do it into a fire protection district? No, it's not, because it's
Can a
not.
larger municipality, say their county or state,
I'm sorry?
could a larger municipality like a county apply to cover multiple villages and townships?
Yeah, they apply for countywide operating.
Right.
authority. Sure. It's a different entity.
Right.
It is that, because that is the municipality.
Right.
Can the village of East Elbow decide they want to do the county of X, Y, Z? No, they only do East Elbow.
Yeah.
One of the items mentioned in this policy statement is very interesting. When we receive the application from any applicant who wants a clarification, we're supposed to submit it to DOH, and who will then advise us if this is a true clarification issue or not. So actually, we don't have to do any work on this at all. We just have to, you know, kind of sit back, pass it on, take a look at it when it's approved as a true clarification application, and take a vote. That's why we really don't need a large fee for this, because there's really no extended process on our part. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. It's going to be fascinating.
Be careful what you wish.
Didn't ask before, but anyway. The treasurer's report, the cash flow and balance sheets are transmitted to everyone. In addition, the members of our larger group first received a detailed cash flow balance sheets and register report, plus copies of canceled checks as per the arrangements we've made with our independent auditors in order to meet current audit standards, and their report is
Everything's in order.
Found everything in order.
okay. And when Sid gets next month, when Sid gets back, he will be presented with the paperwork that he didn't see today. On April 3rd, we forwarded to Lisa DeLong at the Department of Health the quarterly council deliverables and a voucher showing expenditures for the period from January the 1st through March 31st in the amount of $2,728.32 for the council. And then on the same date, a voucher for $40,499.99 for the program expenditures for the same period. That's interesting. Why not even 500? I don't know. Came out that way. Who am I to argue with the computer? That, sir, is my report.
Okay, very good. Motion to accept the report? So moved. Motion been made, do we have a second? Motion's made and seconded to accept the treasurer's report as presented. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Any opposed or abstained?
Joyce and I will abstain. Staff members.
Okay, committee reports.
Regional Program Agency Committee, I expected she was going to be here today, but Beth McGowan sent me a fascinating email and then followed up with a phone call that the whole notion of therapeutic hypothermia is being revisited as an issue. Starting with the Remo folks, I didn't know too much about it. I thought she was going to be here today, and I thought she would have more to say about it. It should be noted, of course, that only the CMAC can approve changes to protocols. I mean, the changes can be suggested on the regional level, and obviously are so on the regional level in due process, but only CMAC can deal with approvals or disapprovals of those protocols. Maybe Gus would be able to fill us in just a tad.
Yeah, I actually had a conversation with Dr. Daly today. So I think Remo and now the collaborative protocols are poised to pull the therapeutic hypothermia protocol based on some evidence that suggests it may not only not be helpful, it may be harmful.
Really?
So that's sort of where it stands. He's sort of taking the pulse of the other regions that comprise the collaborative protocol, which I think is up for revision in the next year.
So right now it's a sort of a work in progress right now, I guess, huh?
I haven't seen, it hasn't been final. I don't think.
Very good. Anything else?
No, thank you.
Training.
Training committee discussed several items. One was a request last month that we had for a COI class closer to the northern end of the area. And we are tentatively looking at possibility of CLI maybe here at the Holiday Inn, possibly in Amsterdam, whatever, on the 27th and 28th of September. Not sure yet whether that's going to go or, you know, but if it's here, we would have to charge like some money for probably $50 or so for food for the 2 days.
To cover our own expenses, because it would be.
Yeah, because we can't take that out of the CLI funding that we get. But that's just, right now it's a tentative discussion, and we're looking into it. And then we did a little bit more work on the agenda for the training or the education day in November, scheduled for November 1st, I believe right here. I haven't yet gotten approval for the CIU, the update, certified instructor update, set for June the 7th. So I will send, as soon as I get the approval on that, I'll send out notice to all the CLIs and CICs that I have on record, and all the course sponsors. And I believe that's it.
I also, just a note that the work is going forward on trying to find an appropriate format so that the statewide BLS protocols can be put into your smartphone. Lou has a smartphone now. I'm the only one at this end of the table that doesn't have a smartphone, so I'm beginning to feel boxed in. Anyway, I have a couple of IT people working on it, and the suggestion was made by the IT fellow that we use that it would be good if this could be, and I don't completely understand the phraseology, but I'll repeat what he said. If we could get the statewide BLS protocols in HTML format, we could use the index as a hyperlink. In other words, somebody wanting to look up quick like a bunny rabbit what it said about spinal mobilization would click to the index, click on spinal mobilization, and be immediately switched to that appropriate page or pages. Working on that now. Right now we have it in PDF format, but it's cumbersome because it's like 120 some odd pages, and you got to go scrolling through. And when you want to look up a protocol, typically you're in kind of a hurry to look it up. Usually it means there's something going on. So I will report more next month on it. Hopefully we'll have something together by next month. But I have to talk to Beth further, and I have to talk to our own IT fellow further, and see if we can see what we can work out. We do have the statewide BLS protocols with the changed pages integrated. We do have that 24 or whatever page document now has all the updates right in it in one place. But it's strictly PDF, it's not HTML, so we're going to work on that. But I say we, they're going to work on it and let me know what happens. I do not have the qualifications to work on that, except to, make it come up a mess on the keyboard. Anyway, that's where we stand with that.
Excuse me 1 second. Going back to the return spontaneous circulation protocol. REMO's website has a advisory, a REMAC advisory 2014-01 regarding cardiac arrest of ROSC, therapeutic hypothermia. In light of recent literature that indicates no survival benefit for patients for pre-hospital induction of hypothermia and cardiac arrest, return of spontaneous circulation, the REMAC amending the protocol, cardiac arrest, RSCP, therapeutic hypothermia, patients should no longer be given chilled normal saline, nor should they have ice packs placed in the axilla, groin, or neck. Following return of spontaneous circulation and cardiac arrest, patients should be transferred to hospitals that can comprehensively care for these complex patients. Thank you. And the effective date on it is current.
Okay, thanks, Johnny. Wasn't aware of that. Again, we must know that formal protocol changes really can't take place unless they're presented to the CMAC. But, okay. That's all I have, sir.
Okay. Transportation standards. What do we need to do?
No, that's
Yeah.
We really don't have anything for transportation standards. We already talked about the clarification, adopting the clarification of territory policy. We don't have any applications outstanding at the present time, haven't received anything. Have been advised by phone and email that we're going to be receiving probably more than a few.
We don't have any from state council, do we?
State council, no, they meet in June, I guess. Yeah, I believe we put the dates down in the previous month.
Regional program?
Regional program, nothing to report.
Okay. Any other program updates?
Not for me.
Anything new from REMAC after that?
No, just what we discussed.
That meets next month. I'm sure we'll have a nice agenda by that time.
Relative to what was just read, we could bring that up with the full REMAC and one region to another adopt their advisory.
Mhm.
So for the next month, we should continue to follow the RSC protocol as it
Yeah,
stands.
because we haven't passed it through the REMAC to do what they did. In fact, Howard was there when that was, he didn't want to be called out, but
So is Mary.
when they discussed that, it
She's everywhere, that's all right.
That's just sort of the, I think we're still learning how to deal with the collaborative protocols. They took a sort of a single region action on it, but it's now being discussed through the collaborative protocols for all the other regions.
I just got to say, I was at those meetings, and it was not without contention. The meeting previous before, the decision was not to change. And the statement was made, one study does not make a practice. And then we had a 180-degree turnaround at the next meeting. And there was a lot of consternation about the decision.
So maybe it is worth, kicking it around the REMAC next month and getting whatever they were chewing on at that meeting.
One of the obvious issues was some places that put considerable money and expense into putting chilled saline in their vehicles by refrigeration and so forth.
Yeah.
To have such a quick turnaround without much discussion was disconcerting.
The other thing that would be interesting, Dr. Daly is predominantly basing that decision on a study out of Seattle. You could argue that, well, I don't know what the transport times are in Seattle, but the cardiac arrest studies are done in big places like Seattle, Pittsburgh. I think there's one other. So that may not be directly translatable to rural environments. You have very different transport times.
The other thing that came up that was kind of dismissed quickly was that protocols, especially now with a collaborative protocol, they've been being discussed via the collaborative protocol committee that's been well established, and this did not go through that committee.
It did not.
Did not.
Okay. So it's basically a remo action at this point.
I have providers
It
that
was
work
a-
in both regions, and that's why.
It was a REMO REMAC specific action.
There may have been other reasons why they did that, but we know from other studies that pre-hospital, the average drop in temperature is 1.4 degrees Celsius. It doesn't come close to meeting the numbers that they were discussing as being unhealthy, if you will. So we're not that big of a problem in that it's really the hospitals and the further cooling of the patient down below that 34, 35 that became issues.
And correct me if I'm wrong, if I remember properly, the impetus that eventually came around to the physicians voting the way that they did was because Dr. Daly had expressed that the hospitals are stopping using therapeutic hypothermia.
If I recall correctly, I believe that one practice group stopped and the other practice group did not.
There you go.
So half our cardiologists are doing it and half of our cardiologists are not doing it. But there was also this discussion that the Rochester area had severely stopped doing therapeutic hypothermia. And they may be willing to come on board with the collaborative if our protocols were in alignment.
I'll also remind people that the American Heart Association still lists it under advanced cardiac life support.
So it's not a clean issue at all.
Yep, ACLS gets reviewed next year,
2015.
and they're already looking at redoing the protocols at that point.
Right, and the issue becomes that a lot of the collaborative protocols go back to referring to following your ECC, AHA standards of care.
It makes it confusing for the provider. You learn
Yeah.
one thing and then you're told to do something different.
It's like this past month's Gems magazine, there's an article about ventilation on the upstroke on CPR. Every 10th upstroke on ventilating the patient on every 10th upstroke. doesn't mention much in there about the American Heart in there, it's just a study that somebody wrote an article on. So, it'd be interesting to see how much that stuff comes out.
The original study for therapeutic hypothermia was actually pretty good. So the original, that's why everybody adopted it. And, you know, studies get repeated is to see if the evidence can be replicated, and it sounds like.
They referenced one study in that advisory, and it was just one for JAMA.
So, yeah, well, it's good to have controversy.
I understand there are other utilizations for therapeutic hypothermia, including resuscitation of the heroin overdose, as well as the patient who's drowning. So it seems like it's new ground being broken on this topic.
Yeah, it's a cutting edge field of research, really, brain, trying to preserve brain function.
Okay, very good. Move on to county report. Delaware, you have anything? The only thing I can say is that Maggie Wilson is stepping into her role, and looks like she's going to be busy. That's about all I can say. Otsego? Anybody here from Otsego County?
Is anyone here today?
Schoharie.
Andy just asked me to mention that Schoharie County's formed an EMS Strategic Planning Committee. They've had one meeting so far to kind of lay the groundwork for the future, what hopefully they can do to straighten it out in Schoharie County.
Montgomery?
Nothing new.
Bolton?
Nothing new.
Allison? Wow, we're all stagnating here.
Nothing?
Nothing. All right.
Waiting for the black flies.
Yeah. Don't worry, they'll come.
I'm coming.
Any old business?
No old business that I have.
Any other old business? Okay, how about new business?
New business, I would recommend that we adopt a motion declaring Cindy Dunham's seat on the council to be vacant. Cindy's work and personal responsibilities have not made it possible for her to attend meetings for, I would suspect, almost the past year now, possibly a bit longer. And I've heard nothing from her regarding this. So according to our bylaws, I think that we should declare her seat vacant. She can always, if her situation changes, she can always be renominated or whatever the case may be.
Any discussion?
Yeah, we should really have a motion on it.
I got just a couple of notes. One, the NAMC course is going on at.
In the middle.
Wait, they're in the middle of a motion.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry.
I thought he said
I thought he said business.
I gotta get better hearing aids.
No problem. I'm at the point in my life now where I get hearing aid advertisements every week in the mail saying, "Come on in for a great deal." What'd you say? What? Oh, okay.
Okay, we need a motion.
So moved.
Okay, have a second?
Second was, I'm sorry.
Pat.
Who's the second?
Do we have a second?
You did say it once.
Gary. Motion made and seconded to declare Cindy Dunham's seat on the council vacant. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Hi.
Any opposed or abstained?
This is not a censure of Cindy Dunham. This is just a recognition that she has not been able to attend the meetings for an extended period of time. And hasn't, communicated any desire to remain on the council.
Any other new business?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please, the chair may be recognized. I just want to remind people there is a instructor course being held in Glens Falls on May 2nd, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th in the Mountain Lakes region, and also the Mountain Lakes has announced that they are doing a certified lab instructor course on May 30th, 31st, and June 1st, and they are charging $50 per person for food and beverage and the like at that course as well.
I believe I've posted information on those on our website.
Just three things to add to that, maybe fourth is, I was going to mention the CLI thing also, so that's awesome. Our AEMT class registration ends May 13th, but we've got 27 people already who have expressed interest and have started the process. And almost 20 of them have completed their registration.
Excellent.
So we have to cap, we're going to cap our class at 30. So if you know of anybody who's interested, have them get a hold of us sooner than later. We're still conducting paramedic program pre-qualification interviews for the fall. We expect to have an EMT class for the fall, but I haven't got an official state number yet, so that hasn't been advertised.
Howard, are a lot of these candidates for the new AEMT, are they intermediates currently, or were they intermediates?
Some are, some aren't. It's actually a surprising mix. We've got, I think it's a great mix, honestly. It's exactly what I was looking for. We got a good chunk of practicing paid career, if you would, intermediates from Greene County who are coming over. And then the rest of the class is a lot of providers from out in this area that are either coming down from CC or coming up from either EMT or EMTI.
Mm-hmm. Great. That's wonderful. Great. That's very cool.
And a
Any
quick,
other new business?
quick save the date, but January 10th will be our winter symposium.
Any other new business? No other business, motion to adjourn.
Okay, we're adjourned at 13:43. We next meet on May 15th, along with the REMAC.
Yeah.
Happy Easter to one and all.
Yes, everyone.